Okay, this is Jeff with the YouTube channel, DSH Abuse. Today's date is September 23rd, 2023. I am at Coalinga State Hospital. I have with me on the phone Joel, also at Coalinga State Hospital. Joel, could you state your name and your hospital ID number?
Yeah, my name is Joel, and my hospital ID is 1308-6.
Okay, and before we get started, I need to make sure that you consent to being recorded and also the posting of this on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to be talking about the veterans group food social from 2019 and 2020. And your position with that group was the duly elected secretary. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to let you freestyle here. Could you just explain what your position was with the group, what your function was, and then to describe the social and what some of the current issues are that we're dealing with?
Okay. Well, first of all, this is dealing with the veterans group, which is a patient-run group. The only part that the hospital has is they ran a sponsor, Lisa, who was a program assistant in Central Program Services. And the sponsor's position is they take care of, to getting the check done, make sure things are going good. And basically, they are like a liaison to administration. They are not running the meetings. That was done. You have an elected president, vice president, and the elected secretary, and there are a few other officers that are appointed. The membership has, where there's associate members, there's majority, which is the people who are actually veterans themselves, is kind of deals with the breakdown. As far as with the hospital, part of the things that's part of with the activities and dealing with the policies is you can have activities, social events for different groups. Some groups the hospital provides the food and whatnot for, some they don't. Veterans group is all self-supported. The hospital doesn't put any of its money into it, but they just arrange in the areas to pick up the food, have it delivered, the check being kicked out. And according to with the hospital, this was just going to be members, actual current members in good standing with the veterans group is the only people that were able to attend, except, if someone was helping serve or part of music or something like that. That was the only exception. Other than that, they were strictly had to be members of the veterans group. So we had collected money from members of the veterans group for socials. That was going to happen. They were spread out over
in 2019 and 2020, correct?
Yes, in 2019 we were having quarterly socials, and we were going up to having socials, but we wanted to have a little bit more of a financial base, which split it up into multiple months, which is what happened. And like I say, unless you were part of the work crew or entertainment, or you were an actual member, you could not participate in it. I was responsible as the secretary. I handled dealing with the financials. I went through and created all the tracking, what the orders were, the total orders, doing all of that paperwork given to the elected president, who gave it to Lisa, who was our sponsor or liaison, And that's what would go up front to get approved, to say, okay, this social's good, we're going with it.
Okay, Joe, before you move on, can you define, Joe, real quickly, can you just define what a social is, and that the patients were purchasing their own food for their own personal consumption? Can you just speak to that issue before you move on?
Yes. What the socials are, it's an event. We start out in the beginning, standard affairs, some of the state affairs. What's going on, almost like the first part is like a meeting. Then once that was done, we have food that's being passed out, so it could be consumed by the patients. We had a room which was the grand meeting room, which is the largest room within the hospital, where the patients are. That's used for big events and was on a regular basis. Now, the food, there was an order form. I'm actually the one I worked with the president of what options were and created the pricing with the president of the veterans group, and we came up with prices. The local, sometimes, like store, in this particular case, it was a Save Mart. They would not guarantee the prices. You know how you go forward and say, okay, we're going to order this, let's set on a final price. And so what the problem is it wouldn't be figured out. We come up with our regular pricing, and we do that till less than a week before, where the paperwork for the check gets kicked out. And they go through and they say, okay, it's with this pricing. So like at the social, that was in February of 2020, they said, okay, on these 4 different pies, we don't have the ones we thought we were going to have in, so it's going to be $1 more a piece. Some things may go on sale, so we also have to run a cushion, which provides different things. If we need a flag for the veterans group, other costs and whatnot with that, coffee, all of those things, supplies. So at this fundraiser, it was also having a little bit of a cushion so we don't go in the negative, and also a little bit of a fundraiser within the veterans group for the veterans group's general fund. But as far as with the food, everything, I'm the one that created the form. It went over, it says, okay, this is what the cost is of it. You fill it out, you sign it. This is the amount that it's going to be, and this is the food that you are going to receive when you go to that event.
So I want to clarify here. So your pricing. So yesterday you gave me. Well, I'm calling it like a spreadsheet where you had where it had the cost of the projected cost from Save Mart of each item. For example, the price of the chicken and the different items, and then you had actually tacked on a certain percentage over and above that, which the patients for that particular food sale were charged, and you had different percentages for those. And then there was actually a certain patients did receive some of their orders, and there was a breakdown where I think in some of the items you guys took a loss. Was that correct?
Well, like I say, in some things, and this is the way you run an event, especially when you have unexpected cost, is you have to create a cushion because you can't go in the negative. If for some reason, with this particular one, if you order a side that dealt with like macaroni and salad, if they don't have it pre-done in a container, then there's no sales tax on it. But if they don't have that and it comes from the grill, comes from their deli, then you're paying a higher price per pound, and you're paying sales tax on it. So you have to have the cushion. What happened on this particular sale, this particular event, which was from February of 2020, they told us that, anything that was a cream pie, it's now going to be $1 more for each one because we have to, their brand. told us that.
Okay. So let me ask you a very pointed question. So for legal purposes, it was never the intent of the Veterans Group in terms of the contract that they, again, this was a patient-run group, the contract that the Veterans Group, as a secretary, that you made with the patient population, for example, the $104 for 100 pieces of chicken, it was never the intent of the Veterans Group leadership that was to be a donation into the Veterans Group kitty, that the patient who was paying $104 for 100 pieces of chicken, it was the Veterans Group intent that the patient who ordered that was to receive chicken, not that the patient was forfeiting that $104 as the hospital is currently alleging. The hospital is currently alleging that due to the pandemic or whatever circumstances have occurred over the last 4 years, the patient has forfeited that money. Was that ever the intent of Veterans Group leadership, that the patient who paid that $104 was donating that and not to receive anything in return?
Yeah, it was not the intent to be a donation. It was specifically, for X amount of money, this is the food that you were going to get. And what we were kept being told by Lisa Adams is as soon as the hospital reopens, because of the pandemic, we're just going to continue where we left off. So it was just a delay. This is the same thing as if you go, let's say there is a fundraiser concert. You buy the tickets through Ticketmaster. All sales are final. However, if the event, for some reason, it could be a war, it could be weather, it could be damage, it could be whatever, it is either delayed or the people have to get their money refunded, even though it's a benefit concert. This is the way it goes. And so what the Veterans Group was being told with our liaison who represented the head of the hospital, which is Lisa, it is going to happen. It's just we're having a delay. The moment everything opens up, we're going to continue where we left off. So them to say it's just a donation, number one, they are just the signature person as far as it goes with the bank. How can the bank tell you how you spend your money within those guidelines? They provide the bank there. I mean, we could have sent it out to a person on the street and had the bill paid out there. But they want to, do it here. It's more convenient. They don't have to kick out all the checks and everything.
So the second part of this question would be, Joe, so the second part of this question would be, so that because you overpriced the actual cost, I believe you had explained to me off this recording, is that any overage that you collected from the patient after the sale was done, that would have been considered a donation, correct? That would be used later for like a pastry or coffee event, maybe for Easter, Christmas, or something. If the event had some small profit, could you just briefly speak to that?
Yes, but that would only affect, like, for instance, the money that was paid by the individual patients for the event that happened in February.
Right.
We would not know exactly what the amount would be until the actual, social event would have happened in March. So
if for example,
allocated to the individual patients who signed and put money into that account until the transaction or the event actually happened.
Correct. If, for example, as a hypothetical, a patient paid $104 for 100 pieces of chicken, and you actually got it on sale for $90, that differential would have gone into the Veterans Group as a donation. Would that be a fair example?
Yeah, you keep using the 100-piece chicken. I mean, that would be a very rare exception, and that would be with, multiple. I mean, it's a social. One person can do it, and they can have, they could have 20 people, getting together in the
No. You missed my question. What I'm saying is, if you originally quoted, No, I was saying if the patient, the order form has $104. The order form for that sale had $104 for 100 pieces of chicken. What I was saying is that if at the time you fulfilled that order, it only cost the Veterans Group $90, that would be a $14 difference. What I was saying to you is if the Veterans Group got the chicken cheaper, that $14 differential that portion would have been a donation into the Veterans Group fund for coffee and pastries or something like that later in the year. Wouldn't that be correct?
Okay, that would be correct. Okay, as far as that goes, if you have it, and let's say because they would not guarantee with the sale, if that chicken say went on sale and it the price dropped, then that would be more that actually donated into the fund. But at these events, the Veterans Group also had coffee. It had Kool-Aid. It had a few other things that were available as far as drinks and whatnot for the people there. So there's more benefit actually than just the actual food that they were purchasing.
Right. That's what I was trying to point out, because what the hospital is not understanding is that only a fraction of what the patients paid into the Veterans Benefit Fund is potentially a donation, not the entire, which $12,000 or so, which is allegedly remaining. I think we've covered what's important. I need you to address the separate sheet the patient signed, where it says at the top, let me see here what it says. It says all patient donations are final. Can you address whether that may or may not have been visible to all the patients, whether all patients would have understood what that meant, and whether patients were ever admonished that about AD 644, that their deposits to the Veterans Fund were forever final and would not be reimbursed under any circumstances, including a worldwide pandemic?
Okay. Here's the way it goes. As far as it goes with the donation sheet, okay, the donation sheet was there. Like Lisa Adams, who is a representative, the representative of the hospital, a liaison officer of the hospital, a program assistant. First, it says that it's final because they generally do not refund the money, because what happens is the event, if there's a situation, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's there's an emergency in the hospital and it didn't happen, they need the room for something else, whatever, which has happened, then it just gets delayed later on. It doesn't stop everything from happening, it just delays it. Just like what I explained before, if you have a benefit concert, it just gets delayed. However, if there's something where the hospital has canceled it and they said, if this will not happen, this was a situation that happened with the peer mentoring program. At that particular time, I was actually chairman of the board of directors, which is like the head patient position, and the hospital had canceled their social. And it was the same type of thing. I was actually doing the tracking, same situation, same setup. And what ended up happening, and I can show you from my past records, is in the peer mentoring, there wasn't nearly as many people involved, but what the hospital did is the hospital returned the funds that were going toward the food that was being purchased. They returned those funds back into the patient's accounts.
So essentially, they violated their own policy.
The hospital said, we're not going to do it again.
So they violated their own policy. So they essentially violated their own policy, AD 644?
Okay, but it always deals with a case-by-case basis. There can always be exceptions made. Like I said, if you go to Ticketmaster and you get a concert ticket because, you know, there's a war or something happens, they get pulled something else, big music concert bands, they have a problem. They either reschedule or they're in the middle of a tour. So the Ticketmaster themselves, that has all sales are final, you bring it in and they refund your money. That's the way it goes. That's the way the law is. Besides the fact that AD 644, which you're talking about there, is an underground regulation and is not, you know, it hasn't been promulgated through the Office of Administrative Law, so it's actually not a policy, not a legitimate policy.
Right.
So
and,
what it says
and it
really
doesn't
doesn't
necessarily
matter.
conform, and it doesn't necessarily conform with California law. And I want to be careful not to talk over you because we're going to have this recording transcribed.
Okay.
But when Joe Castaneda stated that all patients were aware that deposits to the account could not be rescinded, I don't believe that's that all patients were aware of that, and we're going to be doing interviews with them today at random. But you're not aware.
If I can say something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In the meetings, as far as it goes, and we had told people, we had put out memos that went to the veterans group that we were getting from Lisa Adams, it's just being delayed. And so that is the latest that deals with it, and she is representing the hospital. So the hospital's position is what she had said, which is it's just being delayed. There is no refund needed. It's just going to be rescheduled when we have to go through the process, you know, to get the date set and get the approvals.
Well, it's been 4 years, Joe, and the most recent letter from Mr. Castaneda is that although the hospital has opened, and that was the criteria that everybody's been told, is that once the hospital opened, which has been the case for at least 3 months now, that the patient's orders comprising approximately $12,000 would be fulfilled. Mr. Castaneda is claiming in his letter that continues to not be possible because of COVID, which is ravaging throughout the hospital, in spite of the hospital being open. And there's no immediate plan to fulfill these orders. And what we know about COVID in the community and throughout the United States is that it's not going away, and it has never waned enough in this facility in the past 4 years where they could conduct this function. And in fact, the Grand Meeting Room, according to a recent memo, is closed for the next 2 years. So where they would hold this event, you know, is just. But anyway, that's just kind of a separate issue at this point. Anyway,
as far as it goes, we do have places that we can meet if we need to.
Yeah.
We have dealing with the gym. We have E125. They had ladies' night out in the social gaming center. There are places we can do it. So we can do it in smaller groups, so we can get it done that way. But what administration needs to figure out is, are you saying it's not going to happen? So we need to have this money refunded to the people like they did with the peer mentor group? Or are they saying, let's move forward and let's start doing smaller social events so that they can happen, it doesn't affect as many people? And the Coalinga State Hospital, or DSH, Department of State Hospitals, Coalinga, needs to figure out which they're going to do. But holding on to the money, not providing interest, which is what they were required to do if they're delayed on checks out there, like if the budget doesn't clear for California, that they need to accommodate that. So either let's move forward with the socials or let's start sending money back.
Right.
But this
and that's another thing. They've been collecting interest on this money for 4 years and putting that interest in their account, not the veterans account. So.
And that's a lot of money.
And I want to point out that were they to hold this food sale, the prices have increased so significantly that they couldn't even fulfill the patient's orders as they were submitted in 2019. Those orders would have to be completely redone. And I plan to call Samart and just try to ballpark, see where some of the prices are on some of these items at this point. I would imagine it's going to be a shocking experience to hear what they have to say. We need to wrap this recording up. It's running a little long. So let me go ahead and stop this recording.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah, one last thing. Go ahead.
Okay. Can I say one last thing real quick?
Yeah, sure.
The administration building on the very top floor, you have a room that's like 1.5 times the GMR that they have open for their meetings and their socials and some of those things that are going on. They have enough DPS. It's straight out the line. They would not be outside of the razor wire, really, just into the door and up the elevators. So that is a building here on the premises that they have DPS that they can secure if they don't want to do it in these smaller rooms, because I'm sure if things have to get pushed to the courts, that would not be a problem, and the courts say money is no object. So.
Okay. All right, Joe, thank you. I'm going to stop this recording, and then if you could stay on the line, please, I'd like you to tell me where some of these patients are, what units they are, so I can interview them as well. Just hold on for 1 second.
Okay.